Today on Steelers Talk, we're going to go through every single undrafted free agent the Pittsburgh Steelers has signed to their 90-man roster to this point, and I'm going to give a grade for each of them. Plus, I'll let you guys know all of the top rookie players that are going to be attending the rookie minicamp that have not signed onto a contract but have been invited to Steelers rookie camp at the beginning or at the end of today's show. But before we get into today's content, do me a favor, click that thumbs up icon if you love this year's Steelers rookie class. I think it's yet another impressive class put together by GM Omar Khan. And if you're with me on that, click that thumbs up icon to welcome these rookies to the city of Pittsburgh. All right, so let's start here, and we're going to go from lowest grade to highest grade here. DJ Thomas Jones, tight end, out of South Alabama. It's fine signing. You know, I really don't go anything lower than a C with these grades because they're UDFAs. I mean, how are you going to give a UDFA an F grade, right? You're just not going to do that. But Thomas Jones probably doesn't end up making the final roster. Obviously, they signed him to a contract to be on the final 90-man roster here heading into training camp for a reason, but I think he's got a very much an uphill battle to make the final 53. Kind of the same thing with J.J. Galbreath, tight end out of South Dakota, but I think that he's got a better physical profile than Thomas Jones does, so I think that Galbreath might have an opportunity here to make a splash. You take a look at his relative athletic scoring from his testing numbers this past draft season, and he's got an 8.4. That's a pretty darn good athletic profile right there. Now, obviously, compared to other tight ends, he's extremely underweight, 231 pounds, so he's almost like a big wide receiver out there. So he's either going to have to put on more weight or he's going to have to really prove himself as a receiving tight end during the process here of the offseason. Probably an uphill battle for him to make the final roster here. But overall, I like the athletic profile, so I'll give him a B-. Ben Sauls, kicker out of Pittsburgh, I'll give it a B. It's perfectly fine. I like it. I like that they're bringing in the Pitt kid. He's got a pretty decent leg, and, he's a lefty, which is kind of fun. Of course, Pitt Panther gets to try to make a name for himself in the NFL with a good preseason and training camp here in Pittsburgh. But let's face it, the great and powerful Boz is the kicker of the Pittsburgh Steelers, so Sauls is going to be pretty much looking to put out his resume to the rest of the NFL this offseason program. Then you got Roc Taylor, wide receiver out of Memphis, a bigger guy, really good contested catch winner, could potentially be a red zone threat for the Steelers this year. I'll give it a B. He's not much of a route runner, he's not much of a separator. In overall, I just think that the other Steelers wide receivers that they have on the roster are just going to be better suited to be on the final 53-man roster than Taylor is. Somebody that I think might have a little bit of a better chance to maybe make his mark is Keyshawn Williams, slot receiver out of Indiana. Now, he didn't test phenomenally, but he did show some good things last year at Indiana where he was really featured as a slot wide receiver. And if Roman Wilson really stinks it up during the offseason program this year and in training camp and Keyshawn is making plays left and right, he might have an opportunity here to earn himself a final roster spot. But multiple things probably need to happen in order for that to become a reality. Aiden Williams, offensive lineman, is probably going to be a guard out of Minnesota Duluth, Division II. I'm going to give an A- because of the athletic profile that he brings to the table here, guys. You take a look at his RAS score, a 9.35 for an offensive tackle, and it's even better when you take into account that he is probably going to be playing as an offensive guard in the National Football League. So if the Steelers are looking for somebody to maybe surprise them a bit and maybe become a nice depth piece along the interior of the offensive line, I've been telling you guys all offseason that the Steelers believe in the investments they've made along the offensive line in previous offseasons. They have 2 former first-round picks, a second-round pick, and another fourth-round pick slated to start for them this year that was drafted over the last 2 off seasons. But Williams is somebody with a good athletic profile that's coming from a lower level of college ball that's going to be looking to make his mark during the offseason program. My favorite UDFA signing, and the one that I actually think has a pretty darn good chance of making the final Steelers roster here, is defensive back out of Iowa, Sebastian Castro. Now, you might be saying to yourself, but Jack, Castro is a UDFA. How could you possibly say he's going to make the 53-man roster? Well, we'll talk about that here, and I'll actually tell you guys why I think he has a chance to start for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, which sounds a little bit crazy for a UDFA. I completely understand that. But I had a late day 2, early day 3 grade on Castro. I think he's a very instinctual player that I really like, and I would have been fine if the Steelers used one of their day 3 draft picks on him. I like him that much. You take a look at my scouting report on him. And by the way, I had this done before the draft. So this is not, oh, now he's on the Steelers, so now I'm treating him more favorably. I had this scouting report done for our live draft coverage here at Chat Sports. The pros: football IQ and instincts are off the charts. He reads the eyes of the quarterback extremely well, and he anticipates where the ball is going to be going, which is very, very important for a high-level defensive back in the National Football League. He's also very versatile. He played safety and nickel corner at Iowa and did both of them very well. In fact, I think he was a better nickel corner than he was a safety, but he did both very, very well there in Iowa. Also, the run and screen defense is really, really impressive. This is something that we saw from somebody like Cooper DeJean last year from the Philadelphia Eagles, where he would just take away screen passes on the perimeter. That's something that Castro is more than capable of doing. And, his athletic profile isn't great. All right. That is kind of the negative on Castro and why he didn't get drafted. His size isn't phenomenal for a strong safety, but then, the speed and the twitchiness isn't great for a slot corner. So because of that, because of the fact that he's a little bit of a tweener here, he didn't go drafted. But you take a look at his profile compared to somebody like Brian Branch, and it's very, very similar. Now, Branch had a better 10-yard split, had better acceleration, and then he had better explosive numbers than Sebastian Castro had. But overall, the total relative athletic score and the overall 40 time is very similar. And then the arm length as well, very similar between Sebastian Castro and Brian Branch. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Sebastian is going to be Brian Branch level good. I mean, Branch has had a phenomenal start to his NFL career with the Detroit Lions, but Sebastian is somebody that plays with great instincts. He's maybe a little bit unreliable as a tackler. Needs to get a little bit better at that, but I think he can play safety, or I think he could play nickel corner for this team. And with that kind of a little bit of an opening on the nickel cornerback position here, I think he's going to have a chance to prove himself during the off-season program, and I can't wait to see what he can become as a Pittsburgh Steeler. So click that thumbs up icon if you haven't already. If you think Sebastian Castro makes this team, I actually think he does, either as a safety, as a nickel corner. Maybe he's not a starter. I think he's going to have a chance to compete for that starting nickel job. But even if he doesn't win that, I do think he makes the team as a backup and developmental piece. And I do think the best case scenario when it comes to a guy like Sebastian is that he's your starting nickel. I mean, there's a lot of different players that are going to be vying for that final spot. Guys like Beanie Bishop Jr., Brandon Echols, Dante Kent, who this team drafted in the 7th round. But I think Sebastian's going to be right in that mix. So let me know down there in the comments section who wins the starting nickel cornerback job for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. Type BB if you think Beanie Bishop Jr. wins it. Type BE if you think Brandon Echols wins that job. Type DK if you think Dante Kent, the 7th round pick, wins it. Or type SC for Sebastian Castro if you think Castro, the underdog, takes the job by week 1. So here are all the UDFA. So now my final UDFA grade here, and this one was kind of put on there yesterday. Blake Mangelson, defensive lineman out of BYU. I'm going to give this one a B+ because I really like the athletic profile that he's bringing to the table here, guys. Good athletic numbers. Now, he's undersized for a defensive tackle. And, I think that's okay for the Pittsburgh Steelers because they're planning on putting him at the 3-4 defensive end spot. Their 5 technique where they played Larry Ogunjobi all these past years. Now, obviously, he's not going to be slated to be a starter. If he's going to make the team, he's going to make the team as somebody that's going to be a rotational piece, backup, depth-level player. But, he is somebody that fits the mold of that 5 technique that the Pittsburgh Steelers like to have in their defense, and he's got some very intriguing athletic traits that obviously the Steelers like enough to put him on the 90-man roster here. When it comes to rookie minicamp invites here, the Steelers currently have 10 of them at the time of me recording this video, including Nate Matlock, an edge rusher out of Pittsburgh, who will be coming to Pittsburgh to try out for this team during rookie minicamp. Hey, Max Hurlman, cornerback from my Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I think that this team might like him a little bit here. And then Eddie Faulkner IV, a safety, who is actually, the running backs coach here at Pittsburgh's son. So that is a very interesting, obviously draft Carson Bruner, who's the son of a former Pittsburgh Steeler and current Pittsburgh Steelers scout. So now you add kind of another one here, another family tie to the Pittsburgh Steelers family that will be coming here for rookie minicamp. That'll be it for today's show, guys. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. I will see you guys tomorrow with more post-draft Steelers coverage right here on the channel, 100% free. And until then, guys, here we go, Steelers.